event driving. Each test module has to result in validation. We just said it, right? So we always have to validate pass or fail condition. This is our job. You're doing test automation for two main purposes, and only two purposes, nothing else. It's an unattended validation of expected results. This is what we do. And iterative execution of the same test procedure with different input and output data in order to exercise different logic of application through data driving. Make sense? This is only two purposes of test automation. Very easy. Everything else is just furniture to furnish all the test automation aspects. But those are the main goals. So, login page invoked, welcome message appears. Those may be the cues for pass or fail condition, for validation, right? Define at least one validation per test step. This is what we have to do. Each step has to result in validation. We do not finish step without validation. This is why within the test step, when we talk about automation, that relates to automation only. When we design test automation steps, we trigger an event. We're finishing our step by triggering an event, either clicking or typing or executing something that's going to bring something back from the system that will let us to define pass or fail condition. So far so good? Yep. Now, event driving is a technique to define validation point in the test module. In ZAPTEST, we define by simple method exist. That's all. Our exist acts as a validation point. It defines whether object exists on the GUI and acts as a validation point in the test module. Pass or fail. That's it. As a matter of fact, as soon as you drag the object from object repository into the field, it says they exist as a method by default. You can change it later on, but this is how it's set. Very easy. All right. Let's do the exercise. Do you have any questions so far? No? Pretty simple. Let's define test steps here. You have to invoke login page, type username, type password, and click login button. How many steps for test automation will we define based on that? 4. One answer. Anybody else? Okay, keep in mind, let me go a few steps back. We're going to finish the step only in trigger an event. This is the one step, this is the one step altogether. All right? So, based on that, which of the steps triggers event that allows us to define pass or fail condition?
First and last.
Invoke and click, right? So how would you define automation steps here? We said there's going to be 2 steps, right? Invoke, and another one that's going to result in click. So what about the type username and password? Would it be in the first step or the second step? Second step, right? So first we're going to do invoke login page. Why? Because it triggers the system by itself, right? So it brings something back that can validate pass or fail. And then we're going to do the login itself by triggering, submitting the data into login, right? So this is how we define test automation steps. It may have sub-steps, but it has to result in the trigger an event so we can set up exist or validation pass or fail afterwards. Make sense? We're doing automation for sake of the report. By doing automation, we have to keep in mind, it has to run unattendedly when we're not there overnight, and we have to come in the morning, and the report has to be understandable for us to figure out what happened over the thousands of iterations with different type of data between pass and fail conditions. Make sense? So when we're creating the script, we keep that in mind, that we're doing it for sake of the reporting. Right? Make sense? So this is how would we define event driving. Let's do another exercise. Define validation points. Here's the two scripts. When I'm gonna design the script, what my validation point would be here? What would tell me that I'm triggered the event?
Typing.
Clicking.
Click by click, right? So the easiest to comprehend, when we trigger event, what will trigger event? Click by click, right? So what will trigger event here?
I guess the login button.
Login, right? And what would we what would be the event here?
Log out.
Log out. Now let's say we already done the step, and this is what coming back. And I have, based on this script screen, to define what would be the value for me to set an exist on in order to declare passive fail condition. What would it be here? We need to look for unique objects.
Login button and logout button on the other screen.
That would be the login button probably, right? Or maybe label username, because username may appear only in the login field, right? Imagine, when it runs unattendedly, you're not there. You cannot see it with the eye. You need to program the tool that will tell you through the reporting that at the particular step, this screen invoked. Based on what you will know that it's invoked. Based on the unique value or unique object that's present on this particular screen. That's not present on any other screen per se, right? Within the sequence of this test process. So let's say here's maybe username, password, login, right? Those will be the unique values that tells us if login present on the screen, that means we were at the right spot during the execution. And here it's maybe welcome message or log out button. Make sense? So this is the validation points that you would define. This is how you would, based on the visual cues, identify what to report. If that's easy enough? Any questions? All right.